is a question which is asked, why on Hanukkah, which we're celebrating the victory over the Greeks, the myriads of Greeks, hundreds of thousands of trained troops who descended upon Israel to enter into battle, the mighty against the weak, the evil against the righteous, the contaminated against the pure. And despite all that, the Hashmonaim, the family of the Kohanim, of the priests, drove them out and defeated them. We could have been annihilated. And yet, when the rabbis enacted the holiday of Hanukkah, it is only Lahodos of Hallel, to give thanks and give praise. There is no obligation of feasting. Purim, on the other hand, there is not only an obligation to read the Megillah, to read in the most accurate and detailed way the narrative of the events of that particular period in time, but we have to feast and celebrate the event, the miracle that we were saved by God, and He gave us the ability to destroy our enemies. Why Purim? Do we feast and we're fully, almost to the degree of being indulgent in the physical sense? And Hanukkah, there's no feasting whatsoever. One is permitted on a non-obligatory level to celebrate the holiday by having a festive meal, but it is not an obligation. Purim, there is an obligation. Not only is there an obligation to feast, the Talmud uses an expression, one has to drink an intoxicating beverage to a point that he cannot discern between Orur Haman, cursed is Haman, the evil one, and blessed is Mordechai, the devout, righteous one. Meaning, one has to be so deeply immersed in the feast that one actually no longer functions as an intelligent being. How do we understand this? So the Maharal of Prague explains that Hanukkah, the story of the Greeks revered and admired the wisdom of the Jewish people. However, they had one issue with us. The Jews were a monotheistic people. As much as we are wise and intelligent, at a level that very few can compare to that, but we are limited to the parameters which God set in place, because we believe in a monotheistic being. The Greeks, on the other hand, were pagans. Paganism, and they worshiped beauty and physicality. Their God was whatever they believed it to be. And they dictated their theology. And that's something to be bound to restrict and limit one's intelligence. It's something they could not tolerate. If the Jews would have embraced their beliefs, they would have treated them as princes. But because they were not willing to accept their beliefs and their ideals and their perspective of life, that was the cause of the battle between the Greeks and the Jewish people. So the victory over the Greeks was not a victory in the physical sense. It was a victory about our spirituality, that we fought for our beliefs in God. They never wanted to destroy us. Therefore, what is the obligation of the holiday? To give thanks and praise to God that we are intact as a Jewish people, as a spiritual people, as God's chosen people. However, in regard to the Amalekites, which is Purim, Haman personifying the profile and the characteristic of Amalek, where they cannot tolerate the existence of the Jewish people who represent God. Regardless of our beliefs, we could have been pagans, we could have been atheists, we could have been agnostics. It was irrelevant. They wanted to destroy and wipe our physicality off the face of the earth. Therefore, what did the miracle bring about? Our physical existence. Therefore, to commemorate that reality, what do we celebrate? Our physicality. To focus, it's the physicality. It's unrelated to our spiritual, our souls, it's our existence. Therefore, the commandment, the rabbinical obligation is to feast. To what point? That the intellectual perspective is not relevant to that degree. This is how the Maharal of Prague differentiates between the celebration of Hanukkah and the celebration of Purim. This is why it's ad lo yoda. One has to drink to a point of not being able to discern between blessed is Mordechai and cursed is Haman.